we all experience this. So I want you to picture this. I want you to picture a lone cowboy. He's riding drag at the tail end of a cattle drive. Dust in his eyes, silence in his ears, and nothing but the sound of the wind. He's trailing behind. He's out of sight, out of mind. That's loneliness. From the very beginning, God had put, as He had created the heavens and the earth and all that filled it and was underneath of it and above it, as He created all of that, He had stopped at the end of those creations and He took a breath and He looked and He said, "This is good." But when He created man, His prized creation, He stopped at the end of it, watched him, and realized that this isn't good. That man was not supposed to be alone. That he was meant to be with one another, with others. And so God created a companion and a helpmate, and Eve. And even though this is God's creation and His design for all of people, we struggle with this feeling of loneliness from time to time, don't we? Whether it's life circumstances or whether it's just a feeling that we experience, we encounter this. In fact, there's a study out there that from the American Psychiatric Association that says 30% of adults feel lonely every single week. They feel lonely. That's a lot of people. But today what I'm here to talk about isn't necessarily about the feeling of loneliness, because that is something that I believe we all experience. But it's what we do with the loneliness that we feel. You see, I think that I see in Jeremiah, as God had spoken to him and He spoke it to the Israelite nation, He said this, He said, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" See, the emotion of loneliness sometimes will lead us to places that we shouldn't be. The feeling of loneliness will cause us to reach out to people we shouldn't reach out to, do things that we shouldn't be doing. It's deceitful to us. It causes us to believe one thing when it really isn't the truth. So today I want to make sure that that we don't make this all about the feelings. The feeling is important. The feeling is an indicator. Feelings directs us to what maybe is really going on. But the feeling shouldn't be in of itself the problem and need a solution just for that. It's not just about the feelings. It's about what we do with these feelings. How do we respond? You see, the feeling of loneliness is not the issue. It's what we do with the feeling. It's how we respond. So before we get going on how we should respond, I feel it's important that we take some time to consider, why do we even experience this feeling? Where does this come from? Now I believe that we must realize that the enemy is in the shadows. Now, here's what I mean by this, is that we do have an enemy. And the enemy wants to seclude us, wants to isolate us, wants to make us feel alone. Why? Because we are weaker when we are alone. We do things we normally wouldn't do when we are alone. Look at this in 1 Peter 5:8, points directly to this. He says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." I don't know if you've ever paid attention to National Geographic and when they were showing lions and how they pursue on prey. They don't just attack typically in big herds. They go to find the one who's off on their own, alone. And they sneak in through the shadows. They come up from behind and they devour. You see, when we are alone, we are weaker. When we are alone, we make decisions we wouldn't normally make. You see, isolation and loneliness, well, they leave a lot of opportunities to make poor decisions. Why is that? I think it's because when we feel that, we want to compensate for that. We don't like that feeling. We don't want to experience that. So sometimes not only do we compensate, but many times we overcompensate. When we feel insecure, we tend to make decisions and say things in the way that we shouldn't. When we're embarrassed, when we are weakened, when we are unfairly treated, when we are disrespected, when we feel these things, these are really where some of this loneliness comes from. Because we feel like this is where it's rooted. This is where I'm experiencing this. And so when we find ourselves in that, we overcompensate. We want to make up for that. We want to be loud and brash because we feel insecure. We want to have the facade of strong because we feel weak. We want to push people away because we really don't want to feel the need, because we are embarrassed of actually needing help. And it's not so much the feeling, remember. It's what we do with it. This isn't a new thing. You wouldn't be the first one to experience it. In fact, if you turn to your neighbor, I guarantee you, they've experienced the same thing as well. It does not discriminate. In fact, we see this in 2 Samuel chapter 11. We see this with King David. King David, a man of power, a man of prestige, has people to serve him, has people who are clamoring to be near him. And yet, he finds himself in situations. Look at the book of Psalms, look at the Psalms. You see time and time again this feeling of loneliness that David experiences. But we see an example of where this can take us. David, and it says this in 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 1, it says, in the spring at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. We should hold tight to that. See, where David should have been, he wasn't. What David should have been doing, the things that a king should have been doing at the time, he wasn't. He remained in Jerusalem. But let's see what ends up happening. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful. I'm going to stop right there. I'm not encourage you to continue to read on. But I'm here to tell you, because the point is this, is that we see David's alone. David's bored. So what does David do? David goes out and he goes for a walk while he's bored and alone. And he wandered out, and guess what? Temptation. You see, when we're experiencing that feeling, when we're not doing the things that we necessarily need to be doing, the enemy offers a way out, if you will, or a way in maybe to the trap that he is setting. See, he wandered out, and there he was tempted. And that temptation, that feeling, the loneliness that took him to that place led to this temptation, would also led to lust. It led to adultery. It led to deception, which led to murder. He didn't intend to be there. He didn't intend to get to that place, but his response to what he was experiencing took him there. But I think this also illustrates the fact that loneliness isn't limited to certain individuals in certain places in their life. It doesn't discriminate. We see that the single are affected just as the married. Those that are in poverty are inflicted with this as much as those who are wealthy. We see that the unlovable is not just meant for unlovable people, but it's also for the lovable. It's not just the young, and it's not just the elderly. It's not just those that are without, but those that have. It doesn't discriminate. Loneliness finds all of us at some point, at least the feeling of loneliness. And we know that it doesn't discriminate because if you look within the pages of Scripture, you also see this with Jesus. Jesus, as he's getting ready to begin his ministry, the 40 days and 40 nights that he's out in the wilderness, fasting. The devil finds him in that place, and he begins to tempt him. When he's alone, when he's hungry, when he's thirsty, when he's tired. In that moment, the enemy tries to lure him with things that may feel a little bit better, things of power and release. You see, remember, it's not the feeling of loneliness that's the issue in of itself, but it's what we do with it. When we look to fill that hole with of loneliness, we often are tempted by illusions of greater things. Things that are maybe even unrealistic things. We find ourselves pursuing after things that really aren't a reality for us. Because all that we want to do is to not feel this way. We don't like feeling that way. We're not meant to feel that way. God has created us so that we wouldn't have to feel this way. But yet, we do. So I would bring this with a warning. I think it's important, everybody, that we are aware that we need to be aware of the mirage. A mirage is something that makes something look really good. Usually when we're at a low point. A mirage seems to offer the opportunity to scratch the itch that you cannot quite get scratched. And it does it really, really well. See, the mirage promises us greater things, grand things that really isn't reality. And we live in a time that loves to serve the mirage. We live in a time that tells us that if you feel a certain way, that it's right. To go pursue after that feeling because it's right. To go after those what seemingly seem like grand things because it's right. But I'm here to tell you, those things are often a mirage. They're not really there. And they leave us thirstier than when we went after them. They leave us longing and wanting something. And we live in a time where they offer unrealistic opportunities. They offer virtual opportunities to fill that hole of loneliness. They give it right at our fingertips. They leave it for us so that we can grab a hold of it and go searching after things that seem virtually they seem incredible. But realistically, they're not. And it takes us to places that we really shouldn't be. If technology is great and offers so many things, but it also offers so many things that lead us to a mirage with a mouthful of dirt. We live in a time that tells us that through our social media, through our virtual connections, they promise companionship, but often leave us thirsty. If it seems to be too good to be true, there's a really good chance that it is, that it probably is. And through the time that I've spent with the Lord and preparing for this, He's continued to put conversations in front of me with individuals who are experiencing this experience of loneliness, that are pursuing after things that aren't actually real. And it's heartbreaking. You have to understand within this black mirror right here, there are lions that are prowling around looking to devour us. I'm here to tell you that this isn't the answer to our loneliness, to that feeling. It may reach across the world, but it doesn't serve the purpose of which God created companionship within this world. It does not serve this. And I'm here to, if you're a teenager and you're in here, if you're an adult and you're in here, if you're a senior citizen and you're in here, I'm here to tell you this is not the solution. This, right here, this is the solution. This is face to face. And that's hard, isn't it? This is simple. This is easy. We live in a world that it's only going to get harder to recognize reality versus fantasy. It's really good at disguising it right now. And it will only get harder to realize this. And make no mistake about it, it will get easier for humanity to settle for fantasy as a substitute. But it is not a substitute. It will only leave us empty. This is what we need. So that seems like a whole lot of problems, doesn't it? Seems like a whole lot of weight to hold on to. So what do we do? What do we do when we're faced with this feeling of loneliness? Well, I think we need to start here. I think we need to start in this place. And it is a very church-oriented idea, which is good. But this is where we start. We have to realize that we have a faithful trail boss. What I mean by that is that when we feel like we're riding alone and there is nothing around, we have to realize that there is someone who is overseeing this whole thing. There's someone who is watching. There is someone who is with us within it. Let me read this from Psalm 68. It says this, "Sing to God, sing in praise of his name, extol him who rides on the clouds, rejoice before him. His name is the Lord. He is a father to the fatherless. He is a defender of widows. Is God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families. He leads out the prisoners with singing." When you feel alone, when there seems to be no one to help, provide for your needs, when you feel like you're on your own trying to protect yourself, when it seems like no one cares about your well-being, he whose name is the great I am, he whose name is Yahweh, the self-existent one, he whose name is Elohim, the mighty creator, he whose name is El Shaddai, the Lord God Almighty, he whose name is El Elyon, the Most High God, he whose name is El Olam, the everlasting God, he whose name is Adonai, the Lord and Master, and he who's Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. He is the one who will not disappear on you. He is the one who fathers you when you are fatherless. He is the one who defends you when you feel defenseless. He is the one who places you in the family that you need. He is the one. When you feel like you have no one, I think you need to remember to and acknowledge and celebrate that we have the one. C.S. Lewis said it this way. He says, "Look for yourself and you will find only hatred, loneliness, despair, rage, ruin, and decay." Look for yourself. But look for Christ and you will find him, and with him, everything else. Jesus says this, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you." You see, when we seek after the things that seem to provide quickly for us, that gives us instant gratification, offer solutions immediately, when we seek after those things, they often lead us to a place where we still feel hopeless and alone. But when we seek after him who is faithful, he leads us to the places we need to be. So yes, it is great to know that we can always have God on our side, isn't it? It is great to know that he is with us. But let's be honest. Let's be real for a moment. It would be great to know that we have flesh and blood who are there as well, too. It would be great to know that when there is a need, they would be there. But there's obstacles, aren't there? We experience obstacles all the time when it comes to this. I mean, it may not be big obstacles. We live in a broken world where we don't recognize and we don't see that there's more behind the scenes. That we live in a world that where it's trying to push us apart as opposed to bring us together. We live in a time where we often can find ourselves experiencing and accepting a victim mentality. You see, I think it's important that if we're feeling this loneliness, sometimes it's important that we just look in the mirror and really consider where we're at. Consider where our mindset is. Because sometimes we've been treated wrongly enough that now we find ourselves believing that's going to be the case. That every situation that doesn't go exactly how we would want it to go is because we are a victim in it. because we are being wrongfully treated, because we are not loved. And I'm here to tell you, that simply is not true. We experience that because we own this mentality that why would I be worthy of loving? Why would I be worthy of showing up for? So when people don't do it, it just continues to fulfill that narrative that we've already created for ourselves. So I think it's important that we pay attention to that and really assess the situation. Is this people against me, or am I just seeing this wrong? Sometimes we have blind spots on our own behavior. Sometimes we push people away instead of bringing them in, instead of inviting them in. And so sometimes that's really hard for people to want to get close. And sometimes we just do that to ourselves. So I think it's important that we pay attention to this. We notice this. And I think we have to take a different mentality in this. Because honestly, these reasons often cause us to sit back and wait for someone to take the first step towards us. And when they don't, we feel like they don't care. But the reality is, the truth of the matter is we don't know the full story. We're left to assume, to fill in the blanks. And you know what happens when we assume, right? We know. We know where it takes us. So I think there's action that we can take to this. And this would be the action I think that and this may be a little bit hard to chew on, but I think we have to be willing to not just sit on the porch. Here's what I mean by this. We don't just sit on a rocker and just wait for somebody to show up. We don't have a nice glass or jug of lemonade all stirred up and sitting right next to us and just wait for someone to show. But we actually go out and we seek out and we look to connect with people. We look to humble ourselves and put ourselves out there, which is scary. I realize that. That's a very difficult thing. I totally understand that. But in Proverbs, the book of wisdom, and Proverbs 18:24 says this: a man who has friends must himself be a friend. You hear that? A man who wants to be a friend must be a friend himself. Must be willing to take that first step. Must be willing to take initiative. But that's one of the biggest obstacles in mankind, isn't it? One of the hardest things for us to do is to initiate that first step. I know this. I know this from my own experience, my own insecurities, that it is hard. It is hard to take that first step because we don't always want to initiate. Sometimes we get tired of initiating. Honestly, it feels pretty good to be pursued, doesn't it? It feels good when people just reach out and show up. When we don't, it feels really, really good. But if there's only certain people showing up, there's people being left behind, isn't there? That's what ends up happening. And so if we want to experience friendship, I really believe that we have to be willing to be friends and put ourselves out there. Listen, I do this. I know I do this every single week when I'm sending you out of this place. And some of you guys you can recite it better than I can. But every single week when I send you out of here, I say, do me a favor. When you head out of here, go meet somebody new and bring somebody back with you next week. That's intentional. That's genuine. Because right here, right now, listen, you may be in this place and you're surrounded by people and you couldn't feel any lonelier right now. You couldn't. But hey, I'm here to tell you, you're not the only one. Right here in this space, there's an answer to that loneliness. And what is that answer? Friends, it's God's church. It's us. It's us getting outside of our comfort zone and stepping into somebody else's zone. Because listen, your hello may be exactly what is needed. Your smile, your handshake, your embrace, the conversation that you choose to hold, whatever it may be, that may be the exact answer that person needs right now. And so when I say that, I mean it. I really do. It's not a fun catchphrase. I just really believe that is life-changing stuff when we go out of our comfort zone and go meet somebody new. Because we may have the answer that God has for that person. Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. Galatians 6:2 says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Like the idea that what we're here for is not solely to feel loved. It's not solely to not feel loneliness. Our life here on earth is so that others don't feel that, even when we do. Because here's what I know about God. Here's what I know about Him. In those moments when we feel we're at our worst, He shows up. Which leads me to that next point. This is the next point, is right here. It says this. If we want to fight off that feeling of loneliness and we want to experience God's blessing in our lives, just show up at the campfire. Even if you felt like you've been riding behind everybody else all day long, even if you feel like you aren't welcomed into that campfire, just show up to it. Here's what I mean by this. When opportunities arise, just show up. When someone invites you, just show up. When you don't want to, just show up. When someone needs you, just show up. Stop making excuses. And listen, we all have great reasons. We do. And I'm not here to lessen any of those reasons. But if we're real honest, if we really look at that mirror and we really look into what's going on, we are probably going to realize that it's mostly just excuses. Because we're afraid. Because we don't know how people are going to respond to us. Because we don't know what's going to happen from this. There's uncertainty in this. But guys, I'm here to tell you that God is faithful. Even when it doesn't work out the way that you want it to. I'm telling you, if we have our eyes on Jesus, He leads us to the places we're supposed to be. And He will teach us, He will grow us, He will train us for what is next. But we have to be willing to just show up. Just show up. And just to stop making excuses. We live in a world that wants to separate. That wants to divide. That wants to push us apart. All the more, it leans more and more and more and more in that way. But I'm going to say it again. Nothing replaces this. Nothing. There's nothing that has a greater worth than sitting down in front of somebody and looking them eyeball to eyeball. That brings life. Because God is present in those moments. In those moments where you have felt the loneliness, you have felt you're at your loneliest place, I'm here to tell you that God is present in those moments. He hasn't gone anywhere. We have just shifted our attention away from Him. He's there. And He's led us through those dark places. And He is good, He is faithful, and He wants more for us. Hebrews 10, I almost didn't say this. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. All the more as you see the day approaching. Guys, I don't know when the day is, but I do know it's approaching. And I'm here to tell you, I don't know when my day is. I don't know when your day is, but it's approaching. So all the more should we continue to step out in those places and meet people right where they are. Even when we're lonely. Because I'm telling you, God shows up in those moments. because he is faithful. He is faithful. So what do you say? What do you say to being a church that gets in other people's stuff? What do you say about being a church that's willing to be the friend? I don't know about you, but I love it. I love it when I see people gathering together and just talking to one another. It makes my heart so happy. And I believe it does for the Lord as well, too. God is faithful.